Deep in the heart of a dense, dark jungle, a wide river cuts through the trees like a giant snake itself. The water is murky, the air is thick and humid, strange sounds echo from every direction. And moving slowly through this river on a small boat is a man named Jeff, along with two of his companions. Jeff and his crew were not ordinary people. They made their living by hunting snakes deep in the jungle, catching them, and selling them to buyers in the city. It was dangerous work. But for Jeff, danger was just another part of the job. Today, however, they were not heading to just any location. They were going somewhere that even the most experienced hunters avoided. And the boat captain who was taking them there knew exactly how bad this place was. As the boat pushed deeper into the jungle, the captain turned to Jeff with a serious expression on his face. He told Jeff that the place they were heading to was cursed. Not just dangerous, cursed. The jungle there was thick with some of the most poisonous snakes in the world, and somewhere in that dark water, in that twisted jungle, lived something that no hunter had ever successfully faced. A giant anaconda, a creature of legend. Its name was Crimson. The captain lowered his voice and told Jeff that every person who had ever gone to that place looking for Crimson had never come back. The anaconda didn't just kill, it hunted. It was intelligent, patient, and massive beyond anything a normal person could imagine. Jeff listened to every word, and then he smiled. He told the captain to stop worrying and just drive the boat. Once they arrived, the captain would get his money, and he could turn right around and go home. Simple as that. The captain had no choice. He kept driving. What the captain didn't know was that Jeff had not come to this jungle by accident. He had not stumbled upon the legend of Crimson by chance. Jeff had been planning this trip for a long time. He was an expert snake hunter, one of the best in the world. And catching Crimson was not just a job for him, it was an obsession. After some time, the boat finally reached the location. The captain stopped the engine and turned to Jeff, holding out his hand. But this time, he wanted more money. The place was more dangerous than he had originally agreed to, he said. Taking people here was a serious risk. He deserved extra payment. Jeff didn't argue. He reached into his pocket, pulled out cash, and held it out toward the captain. The captain smiled and reached out with both hands to take it, and Jeff deliberately let the money drop. The notes scattered and fell to the floor of the boat. The captain, eyes wide, immediately bent down and started picking them up happily, collecting every single bill. When he finally stood back up and looked at Jeff with a satisfied grin, Jeff drove a knife straight into his throat. It was fast. It was merciless. The captain didn't make a sound. Jeff cut his throat completely and threw his head into the river water without a second of hesitation. Jeff's two companions were standing on the nearby riverbank watching all of this happen. Their faces went pale. Their hands started shaking. They had worked with Jeff before, but they had never seen this side of him. Jeff climbed off the boat and walked toward them calmly. He looked at both of them and spoke quietly but clearly. He told them that if either of them ever thought about betraying him, they would end up exactly like the captain. Neither of them said a word. The three of them moved deeper into the jungle. After pushing through the thick vegetation for a while, they came upon a clearing and stopped. In the center of the clearing stood a massive stone statue, carved in the shape of a coiled snake. It was ancient, covered in moss, and enormous. Jeff stared at it and said quietly that the legend of Crimson was real after all. Meanwhile, his two companions had found exactly what they came for: snakes. Dozens of them, scattered through the undergrowth, moving through the leaves, coiled on rocks. Their eyes lit up. This place was a gold mine. They quickly got to work, grabbing snakes and stuffing them into large cloth bags as fast as they could. Jeff paid no attention to any of these small snakes. They were worthless to him. He was only interested in one thing: the largest, most dangerous snake in this entire jungle. He started searching, moving through the trees, studying the ground, looking for signs of something much, much bigger. One of the companions finished filling his bags and decided to head back to the boat alone to drop them off. He made his way back through the jungle and reached the river's edge, and then he saw it. There, standing in the shallow water at some distance from the boat, was the headless body of the boat captain, just standing there, motionless. The man stared at it, unable to process what he was seeing. His brain refused to accept it. Then the body slowly sank beneath the surface. A large shape began moving through the water, fast, smooth, and heading directly toward him. The man turned and ran. He sprinted back into the jungle as fast as his legs would carry him, but he was nowhere near fast enough. With the speed of lightning, an enormous anaconda exploded from the water and wrapped itself around him. The coils tightened, bones snapped. The man screamed once, and then the anaconda opened its massive jaws and began to swallow him whole. Back in the jungle, the other companion was walking along a trail, carrying a bag full of snakes, when he stopped suddenly. Something ahead of him wasn't right. He looked up. and saw the body of the same massive anaconda draped over a tree, slowly climbing upward. And from the shape of its stomach, it was clear. It had already swallowed a human being. The bulge was unmistakable. Before the man could even think about running, the anaconda opened its mouth and spat out his companion's body right in front of him. Then it turned its massive head and looked at him. He never made it out. The anaconda coiled around him, crushed him, and began eating him too, wrapped around the tree, completely calm, completely in control. Jeff had watched all of this from a short distance away, hidden in the trees. He saw both of his companions die, and he did nothing. In fact, he was pleased. This was exactly what he had been waiting for. He needed bait to distract Crimson, and his companions had served that purpose perfectly. The plan was simple. While the anaconda was occupied eating, Jeff would move in, stun it, and capture it. He reached for his shotgun and prepared to act. But then every animal in the jungle went completely silent for 1 second, and then exploded into chaos. Birds screamed and launched from the trees. Animals crashed through the undergrowth in every direction. Something had frightened every living creature in this jungle at the same time, and whatever that something was, even Crimson was afraid of it. The anaconda dropped its prey and disappeared into the jungle without a sound. Jeff stood there alone, staring into the trees, wondering what could possibly frighten an anaconda that size. The scene shifts completely. Far away from the jungle, in a city, a circus show is struggling to survive. The tent is half empty. The crowd shows no interest. The performers go through their routines with tired faces, knowing that this circus is dying. Then a young man named Bill Yang walks through the entrance and sits down with the circus owner. He places a suitcase on the table and opens it. Inside is a very large amount of money. Bill Yang tells the owner that he wants to buy every single performer working in this circus. He has a plan to open a brand new circus in Thailand, and he wants to bring the whole team with him. The performers standing nearby stare at the money with wide eyes, but something about this bothers them. Bill Yang used to work in this exact circus. Not long ago, he was one of them. Broke, struggling, just another performer trying to make ends meet. And now here he was, walking in with a suitcase full of cash, buying people like he owned the world. Nobody knew where all this money had come from. Nobody knew what Bill Yang had been doing in the years since he left. And nobody felt entirely comfortable asking. But money is money. And the circus was already failing. The owner took the deal. The next morning, Bill Yang arranged for everyone to board a large boat that would take them to Thailand. Since he had essentially purchased their contracts, everyone did as they were told and climbed aboard. The boat captain started the engine and they headed out through the river. At some point during the journey, Bill Yang slipped away quietly and locked himself in the bathroom. He made a phone call. The person on the other end listened as Bill Yang said that the delivery was ready. He would be arriving soon with all the people. That single sentence said everything. Bill Yang was not taking these people to Thailand for any circus. He was planning to sell them, every single one of them. The boat continued moving through the river system. Then, around a bend, they found their path completely blocked. Someone had placed large wooden barricades and heavy metal containers across the water, making it impossible to pass. The captain told Bill Yang that they could go around using a different route. It would take significantly more time, but it was the only safe option. Bill Yang refused. He had already taken money for the circus show in Thailand. If they arrived late, the deal would fall apart and he would be ruined. He needed to get through this blockage. Now, the captain thought for a moment. There was one option. They could blow the containers up with explosives, clear the path, and keep moving. Bill Yang liked this idea immediately. They didn't know it was the worst decision they could possibly make. The crew placed bombs near the containers and triggered them remotely. The explosion was massive. The path cleared, but the blast sent containers flying in every direction, and every single one of those containers was packed full of snakes. Hundreds of snakes rained down onto the boat from every angle. Absolute chaos broke out on board. People screamed, slipped, and ran in every direction as snakes covered every surface of the boat and began biting anyone they could reach. A girl named Lenny kept her head. She grabbed a large pressure pipe, turned it on full blast, and used the powerful stream of water to knock the snakes off the deck and send them flying into the river. It worked, at least around her. Bill Yang, completely panicking, locked himself inside the bathroom and crouched in the corner. But the ceiling above him cracked, and snakes began pouring through it from above. He screamed, scrambled to the window, and threw himself into the river. He swam desperately toward the bank, coughing and gasping. He dragged himself onto the shore and found a king cobra sitting right in front of him, hood spread wide, ready to strike. Bill Yang froze. A boot came down hard on the cobra's head, crushing it into the ground. Bill Yang looked up slowly. Standing above him was Jeff. Jeff helped pull Bill Yang to his feet and brought him back onto the boat. Jeff introduced himself as a wild explorer who had gotten lost deep in the jungle due to an accident and had been trying to find his way out. It was a clean, simple lie, and everyone on the boat accepted it gratefully because he had just saved Bill Yang's life. Among the circus performers, there was a man named Jiao who suddenly collapsed to the ground, clutching his ear in agonizing pain. He writhed and screamed. Jeff crouched beside him and looked closely into the ear. He saw something inside. Jeff made a small cut on his own finger, drawing blood, and held it near Jiao's ear. A moment later, a thin, almost invisible snake slithered out of the ear canal and bit directly into Jeff's finger. Everyone gasped and stepped back. Jeff calmly pulled the tiny snake off his finger and tossed it into the water. No reaction, no pain, nothing. Lenny stared at him. She had knowledge about snakes, real knowledge, and she knew exactly what had just happened. For a person's body to become completely immune to snake venom, they had to inject venom into themselves repeatedly over a long period of time. Tiny amounts, slowly increasing until the body stops reacting to it entirely. It was an incredibly dangerous and painful process. Very few people in the world had ever done it. Jeff had done it. She pulled Bill Yang aside and told him quietly that something wasn't right about Jeff. He wasn't who he said he was. A real lost explorer doesn't inject snake venom into his own body for years. Bill Yang waved her off. Jeff had saved his life. That was enough for him. Later, Jeff found the boat captain alone and approached him with a folded map and a thick stack of money. He showed the captain a specific location on the map and told him that if he took the boat there, he would receive even more money upon arrival. The captain looked at the location on the map. His face changed immediately. He put the map down, reached under his seat, pulled out a gun, and pointed it directly at Jeff's face. He told Jeff that if he ever mentioned that place again, he would shoot him right there on the spot. Even the captain knew about Crimson. Jeff walked away without arguing. He was patient. He had other plans. Later, the captain sat at the edge of the boat with a fishing rod, trying to relax. The line went into the water. He waited. Then something pulled the rod, hard. The rod jerked so violently it flew out of his hands and skidded toward the edge. The captain leaned over to grab it, and someone grabbed him instead. Jeff pulled him down into the river from beneath. The captain was gone. Jeff then used the captain's body as bait, dropping it into a specific part of the river where he wanted to draw the anaconda's attention. When people on the boat started asking where the captain had gone, Jeff played innocent. He shrugged and said the jungle was unpredictable. People disappeared out here all the time. It happened. Lenny didn't believe a single word. Then the jungle went quiet. Every bird, every insect, every animal, silent. And then the water started moving in a way that water shouldn't move. Everyone crowded together near the railing and looked out. Jeff broke into a wide smile and said that something big was coming. Deep beneath the surface of the river, a massive shape was moving toward the bait that Jeff had planted. Jeff grabbed a thick rope and a fishing rig and prepared himself. But Crimson was not going to cooperate with his plan. The anaconda's pull was so powerful that when Jeff grabbed hold of the rope, it yanked him straight off the boat and into the water. Jeff thrashed and fought in the water as the anaconda dragged him around like a toy. He used every bit of his strength to swim and haul himself onto a small secondary boat floating nearby in the river. He tied a net rope to the boat and tried to use the vessel's weight as leverage to hold the anaconda. He grabbed a sharp tool and drove it into the anaconda's body. The anaconda barely noticed. It wrapped itself around Jeff and the small boat together, pulling both of them underwater in one powerful motion. The people watching from the main boat were certain Jeff was dead. They watched the water close over him and waited. Then Jeff broke the surface behind the main boat, climbing back aboard soaking wet and completely uninjured. Everyone stared at him in disbelief. Jeff turned immediately and started scanning the water for the anaconda. He was focused, calculating, ready. He didn't think to look up. The anaconda had already left the water. It was on the roof of the boat, directly above him, moving slowly and silently. Without warning, it opened its jaws and dropped the captain's body from its mouth onto the deck in front of everyone. Screaming erupted. People scattered in every direction, running, crashing into each other, falling over equipment. The anaconda moved across the roof and began closing in on two circus performers who had locked themselves in a room below deck. Jeff attacked it from behind with his sharp tool. The anaconda swung around in fury and came straight for him instead. Jeff ducked and ran, leading it away from the others. The massive snake followed him inside the boat, sliding through corridors, knocking over everything in its path. By pure luck, it passed directly over Billy and a woman named Diana without seeing them, its belly dragging over their hiding bodies as they pressed themselves flat against the floor and held their breath. The anaconda searched every corner of the boat. It found a child and Jiao near the bathroom and lunged at both of them. They barely escaped. Lenny came running to help, and the moment the anaconda snapped at her, Jiao grabbed a large pot and shoved it directly over the anaconda's head. The massive snake thrashed and spun, slamming its head against walls and the floor, trying to free itself. In the chaos, a large container of kerosene oil tipped and spilled across the floor. The anaconda continued its wild struggle, completely out of control, until finally it slammed its head hard against the boat's hull and the pot shattered free. Jeff moved in immediately and threw a rope noose around the anaconda's neck, but the spilled kerosene had already caught fire. Flames spread rapidly across the floor, climbing the walls, reaching the storage area where the explosives were kept. The first blast shook the entire boat. Then a second. Then a massive final explosion blew apart the center of the vessel. Everyone jumped into the river to survive. The anaconda, still tangled in Jeff's rope, could not escape the fire. It burned. The survivors swam and pulled themselves onto the riverbank, coughing and exhausted. They turned back and watched the boat burn on the water. Bill Yang sat on the bank and started crying. Not for the people who had nearly died. Not for the chaos and terror they had all just survived. He cried because they wouldn't make it to Thailand on time now, and his advance payment for the show was gone. Lenny had seen enough. She walked straight up to Jeff and told him exactly what she thought. He had used their boat as a trap. He had put all of their lives at risk. He had done all of this deliberately. Jeff didn't bother denying it. He asked them plainly, did they have any idea what Crimson was worth on the market? That single anaconda, if caught alive, would make every single one of them a millionaire overnight. He told them that if they had helped him from the start, they would already be rich. Bill Yang's tears stopped instantly. His eyes changed. He stood up, walked over to Jeff, and said he was in. Jeff pulled out a map. He showed them the location of his boat, which was stashed deep in the jungle. If they helped him get there and assisted with the capture, he would personally ensure they all got to Thailand within 2 days. Most of the circus team agreed. They were exhausted, stranded in the middle of a jungle, and had no better options. Lenny refused. She didn't trust Jeff. Not even slightly. But then one of the girls from the group suddenly became very sick. Her shoulder was swelling badly. When Bill Yang checked it, they found the bite mark of an extremely rare and deadly jungle spider buried under her skin. The venom from this spider could kill within hours. Jeff told them calmly that he had the antidote. It was on his boat. If they wanted to save her life, they needed to come with him. Lenny had no choice. She went. The group set out on foot through the jungle. Hours passed. At one point, one of the men bent down toward the river and started scooping up water to drink. Jeff grabbed his arm and stopped him immediately. He told everyone clearly, never drink this water. The river here contained microscopic insects that entered the body when swallowed. Once inside, they created an uncontrollable, maddening thirst that got worse and worse, until the infected person was compelled to throw themselves into the water and drown. It was not a quick death. The man stepped back from the river's edge. They were hungry, but there was nothing safe to eat. Jeff spotted a snake resting on a rock nearby, caught it with his bare hands, extracted its venom carefully, and then they cooked and ate it. It wasn't pleasant, but it kept them alive. Night fell before they reached Jeff's boat. The group stopped inside a large mountain tunnel, lit a fire, and tried to rest. Jeff sat apart from the others, staring at the map he always carried, studying the drawing of the anaconda marked on it. He thought about the last time he had come face to face with Crimson. That time, the anaconda had come close to killing him. Jeff had only survived by hiding inside a large wooden box. The box had been sitting on a slope, and when the anaconda pushed against it, it had rolled down the hill and slid all the way to the river's edge. Jeff had been trapped inside for a very long time, unable to get out, stuck in the dark, waiting. Eventually, the blast from Bill Yang's group blowing up the containers had freed him. That was how he had ended up with them in the first place. Jeff stared at the map and thought about the next attempt. This time would be different. Bill Yang came and sat beside him. He asked Jeff quietly, "That's the one you're after, isn't it? The giant." Jeff told him everything. Crimson was not just the biggest anaconda in this jungle. It was the apex predator of the entire region. Every animal here feared it. It had taken down prey that no other snake would ever attempt, including other large anacondas. It was smarter than it should be, more patient, more dangerous, and more valuable than anything either of them had ever seen. Bill Yang looked at the map and made up his mind completely. He was all in. In the deep of night, while everyone slept, one of the circus performers woke to a strange sound. He looked beside him. His brother was gone. He got up and followed the sound toward the river. He found his brother standing at the water's edge, leaning forward, trying to drink from the river. He shouted and grabbed him, pulling him back. But his brother fought against him, wild-eyed and desperate, drawn to the water by something beyond his control. And then the man saw it. thin, pale insects crawling out of his brother's nose. His brother had drunk the river water earlier. The insects were already inside him, and there was nothing that could be done. The man watched helplessly as his brother stumbled forward and fell into the river. He returned to the tunnel alone and sat in silence for the rest of the night. In the morning, the group pushed on. After several more hours of hard walking, they reached a wide stretch of river that they had no choice but to cross on foot. The water came up to their waists. Everyone moved carefully, staying close together. Then a child in the group pointed down at the water beneath their feet. They looked and saw the shapes of anacondas, not one, many, moving in a wide ring around them, circling slowly, closing in from every direction. The man whose brother had died was walking at the back of the group, a little behind the others. He was slow, still in shock, still grieving. A large anaconda exploded up from behind him and coiled around his body before he could make a sound. Lenny turned and tried to reach him, but by the time she got close, the bones were already gone. The anaconda pulled him under the surface, and he was gone. Everyone ran. They splashed through the water as fast as they could, not looking back, not stopping. They finally reached the far bank, and there was Jeff's boat, exactly where he said it would be. Jeff climbed aboard immediately and produced the antidote for the girl who had been bitten by the spider. She was given it quickly. Jeff then turned to the group and told them plainly that he had kept his promise. He had brought them here safely. Now they needed to keep theirs. He needed their help catching Crimson. The land of Thailand was visible on the horizon, almost close enough to touch. But first, this. The child in the group spoke up and said that if this was about catching that anaconda, the answer was no. None of them were doing it. Jeff pulled out his gun. Bill Yang stepped forward at the same moment and pulled out a knife. He stood beside Jeff and told everyone that they would do exactly what Jeff said. No arguments. Lenny stepped forward and told them both that they had completely lost their minds. That anaconda had already nearly killed all of them multiple times. Why would anyone willingly go near it again? Jeff answered her question calmly. Catching it was nearly impossible while it was alert. But when it was eating, when its attention was fully on its food, it became vulnerable. That was the window. That was when they could move in and trap it. And they needed bait. Jeff and Bill Yang grabbed 2 members of the circus team, tied them with ropes, and positioned them in an open area near the water. The child looked at Bill Yang with pure disbelief and asked why he was doing this. If these people died, who would perform in his circus? Bill Yang laughed loudly. He told the child that they had all been incredibly foolish. Did none of them ever wonder how he had become so wealthy so quickly? He wasn't taking them to Thailand for any circus. He was going to sell their organs. That was his business. He had done it before and he had planned to do it again. But now he had changed his mind. Jeff's plan was worth more money than a boat full of organs. So here they were. He left the 2 tied circus performers in position and walked a short distance away to hold the capture rope. One of the 2 tied girls decided she wasn't going to simply wait to die. She stayed very calm and pretended to cooperate with Jeff. She smiled at him, stepped closer, spoke softly. Jeff was suspicious but curious. She reached up slowly and started running her fingers through his hair, and the moment his guard slipped even slightly, she reached into his pocket and snatched his gun. She pointed it directly at him and pulled the trigger. Nothing happened. She didn't know how to disengage the safety. Jeff's expression turned cold. He snatched the gun back from her hand and raised it toward her face. Lenny had been working quietly this entire time. She had managed to free herself. She charged at Jeff and drove a sharp piece of broken glass into his side. Jeff stumbled and shoved her hard. The other tied girl attacked him from the front. Jeff and Lenny struggled over the gun, both grabbing for it, twisting against each other. A single shot rang out. Nobody could see immediately who had been hit. Out at the bait position, both tied performers were shaking uncontrollably. The ropes held them in place and they could do nothing but wait and watch the water. Something large began moving through it. An enormous anaconda was approaching, drawn in by their scent, coming to feed. Bill Yang stood back, watching from a distance with a rope in his hands, planning to pull the net at exactly the right moment and trap the anaconda beneath it. He didn't look up. Above him, clinging silently to the structure overhead, was another anaconda. It dropped. Bill Yang was snatched upward before he could make a sound. The rope slipped from his hands and fell, and as it fell, the net it was connected to dropped over the 2 tied performers and covered them completely. Accidentally, perfectly. They were tangled, but they were not in the anaconda's path anymore. They were covered and hidden. The net had saved them. Jeff tried to kill the girl in front of him, but Lenny came from behind and swung a large piece of wood directly into the back of his head. He dropped to the ground, unconscious. Lenny and the other girl immediately ran to their 2 tied companions and worked frantically to pull the netting away and free them. All 4 of them started moving toward the river as fast as possible. Then Jeff got back up. He was moving toward them again, blood on his face, when a massive anaconda dropped from above and seized him. This time, there was no escape. The 4 survivors ran. They hit the river and dove into Jeff's boat, started the engine, and began pulling away from the bank. Then Jiao made a sound and reached up to his shoulder. Something was sticking out of it. He pulled it free and looked at it. A small injector needle, filled with a sedative. Within seconds, his eyes closed and he slumped forward, unconscious. Jeff had survived Crimson's attack. He had cut his way out from the inside, and now he was standing on the bank, watching the boat, entirely calm. He had recaptured all 4 of them before they even realized what had happened. He wrapped sharp iron wire around them and poured blood over the area to attract the anacondas. Then he walked a short distance away and held the capture rope, ready. It didn't take long. The smell of blood reached through the jungle quickly. Anacondas began appearing from every direction, sliding through the grass, moving through the water, closing in from all sides. The 4 captives could see them coming. They could see their own deaths approaching. None of them spoke. There was nothing left to say. The anacondas came very close, and then the jungle erupted. Every animal panicked at once. The birds screamed, the insects went silent, and every anaconda that had been approaching suddenly changed direction and fled. Every anaconda except one. One stayed in position, looking at the 4 captives, preparing to strike. Then Crimson arrived. It moved toward the single remaining anaconda and killed it with one strike, a single clean blow that ended it instantly. Crimson then turned toward the 4 captives. Its massive head swayed slowly as it looked at them. Its jaws began to open. Jeff released the net. The huge woven trap dropped over Crimson and wrapped around it. Crimson thrashed and rolled, sending shockwaves through the ground, and then it turned its head toward the net itself and bit through the rope with its teeth, cutting the main line clean apart. The net loosened. Crimson began pulling free, but pieces of the net were still wrapped around its body, trailing behind it as it moved. Jeff grabbed the loose rope and tried again, planting his feet, pulling back. Crimson turned and looked at Jeff directly. Jeff stepped backward and felt the trees close around him. He was wedged between 2 thick trunks, unable to move left or right, unable to step back further. He was completely trapped. Crimson moved toward him slowly now. There was no rush. Jeff struggled to free himself from between the trees but couldn't. The anaconda reached him and wrapped around him, crushing, pressing, tightening with every breath Jeff tried to take. The 4 captives were still tied, watching everything. They started working on their ropes desperately, pulling, twisting, trying anything. Nothing was working. The knots were too tight. The child looked at the rope holding him. He bit into it. He chewed through the thick rope with his teeth. The rope frayed. The fibers separated one by one. Crimson continued crushing Jeff in the background. Jeff stopped struggling. With one final effort, the child bit through the last strands and pulled his hands free. He immediately worked on freeing the others. One by one, all 4 of them got loose. They ran toward the river. Behind them, Crimson finished with Jeff and turned its attention to the movement ahead. It gave chase. This was Crimson's jungle. It knew every inch of it. It was faster than they expected. The 4 of them split and hid, 2 behind a large tree, the child diving into a wooden crate on the ground, Jiao scrambling behind cover. The child pulled the crate door shut, but the latch on the other side locked automatically. He was trapped inside, just as Jeff had once been trapped in a box in this same jungle. Crimson approached the crate slowly. The child pushed against the door with all his strength. Jiao came around from the side, found the latch, and broke it open. The child burst out and they all ran together again. But there was nowhere to go. The anaconda was behind them, in front of them, on every side. They stopped running. They pressed against each other and faced the direction the sound was coming from. They were done. They had nothing left. Crimson was going to take them. The massive head emerged from the tree line and came toward them. The jaws opened wide enough to take all of them at once, and then the wire caught it. A line of sharp iron wire had been stretched low across the jungle floor at that exact spot, strung between trees, hidden, waiting. The speed of Crimson's attack drove its head directly into the wire. The force of the impact and the razor-sharp iron did the rest. The wire cut clean through. Crimson's body dropped to the ground. The 4 of them stood completely still. Slowly, the reality settled in. It was over. Crimson was dead. Jeff was dead. Bill Yang was gone. The boat that would have taken innocent people to be sold was burned. The jungle was quiet. They looked at each other, and without another word, they walked. They kept walking until the jungle ended, until the river narrowed, until the sounds changed and the air became different, and they were finally completely out. They never looked back.